Hey, good evening, and welcome to Everyday Thoughts and our thoughts for tonight. Behind me, you see the last clouds of Hurricane Ida as it passes over this area, headed out to sea in the northeast. But what a powerful storm, and I pray that we would both have compassion for the folks in the Louisiana, Mississippi area and Alabama, pray for them, but also realize the power of God and how we need to be in awe of Him, and think more about how we can just be respectful of God and seek repentance for our nation. In any event, we're talking about respect and respectful children. And this morning we talked about the concept of respect. How am I respectful to others? Because God says that we are to consider others better than ourselves. There's no exception clause there. So now, when we look at this issue tonight, I want to take this a next step further. How do we have respect for disrespectful children? And over the years, there's probably nothing that has upset parents more as I talk to them when they start talking about their children being disrespectful to them. So I've had parents say things like this to me. Perhaps you've said these words yourself. I can take a lot of things, but disrespect, I won't tolerate it. Just not going to allow it. And those always blow up in the face of families and relationships when we get to that point. You see, children are given to us by God as a blessing. It's not a chance occurrence. Children are not just something that wanders into the scene. It's not just a random biological event, no matter what we may think. It's the plan and purpose of God. Each child is the plan and purpose of God that you have them. It's a sovereign choice of God. It's a gift of God. It's not something that you can just do with as you please. God is holding you responsible to honor Him as you deal with your child. So, based on what we talked about this morning, respect then is for those who are made in God's image. Respect is God's choice, and respect is an honor, because it's an honor to raise these children for God. How we raise the children is not our choice, contrary to popular opinion. God gives us direction. We are commanded to bring them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord. So it's not my call, it's God's call. Not every single step that I take, but my mindset, my orientation, my goal is to raise them for the honor and glory of God. That means if I have a disrespectful child, it doesn't let me off the hook. I must still do things God's way. I must correct them, train them, nourish them by using gentle and pleasant words. By not anger. Anger will not produce the righteous life that God desires, especially anger and disrespect. It's not warranted. We've got to be open to reason as parents, wisdom from above, just a few samplings of what God has called us to do. We're not able to ignore those truths. It's complicated, compounded by the idea that our children are born disrespectful. They are born self-centered. They are born at war with God. Ephesians tells us this. Galatians tells us this. The Bible tells us this. Genesis tells us this. So it doesn't leave me free to disrespect my children or be angry at their disrespect. Rather, my job is to nourish, to water, to weed out, to cultivate, to deal with this rebellion in such a way that brings honor to God. Therefore, our respect for our children is not tied to their performance. Respect for my child is not tied to their performance. I don't evaluate my children based on how they're doing and determine if I'm going to respect them or not. I respect them because God has placed them in my home, and He's calling me to care for them. He's calling me to watch out for them. He's calling me to take their disrespect, put it in the context of what it means to trust God, and make sure that they understand that this conflict is about them and God. So this is a little illustration. You've seen my book, but this is the same thing. God is the one who gives authority to parents to raise their children to honor him. So it's God, parents. My authority is not something I earned. It's derived, it's given to me. What we make the problem is that there's disrespect with the child, the conflict becomes between me and the child. What I need to do is to make sure that this conflict is between the child and God, because the God is the one who's placed the child in my home, and I can't take this thing on by my anger and my upset. How could you do this to me? But rather help them to see that they need to be in line with what God has called them to be. So I don't need to be in the disrespect business of disrespecting my children when they're disrespectful to me. Doesn't mean I'm a pushover, doesn't mean let them do what they want, but it means I love them, I correct them, I care for them, I nourish them, I instruct them as a matter of respect and honor, even when I have to discipline. Not out of anger, not out of upset. See how different this is. Our anger will not produce respect in our children. We may get compliance, but we won't get respect. Respect in the hearts of our children is God working in their hearts to bring honor to him, and therefore we're honored. And we'll talk about more about that tomorrow. But remember, we're raising our children. We don't evaluate them on their performance. We don't respect them on their performance. We respect them because they're creatures made in the image of God, given to us by God for us to command them and lead them so they can love, serve, and honor God. That's our job description as parents. We can't do it by our own strength, but by God's grace and mercy we can. Again, give me your feedback. Love talking with you and getting your thoughts on these things. And Lord willing, we'll be with you tomorrow morning. Check out everydaytalk247.com. If you haven't subscribed, do that and turn on post notifications, and these videos will come right to you. Again, such a joy to be with you tonight. Thanks for being here, and have a great evening. Lord willing, we'll see you in the morning. Good night.